Do you want to know how to talk to your child about sexual abuse in a way that empowers them, instructs them, and builds them up instead of creating fear? That's what we're going to be talking about here in this video. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education, all through the lens of the principles of self-government. I have worked with many children who have been abused or who have sexual reactivity issues so that they could easily be abused, and I've had to have some touchy conversations. And in this video, we're going to talk about how I did that and what you can do in order to prepare your children for success. We want to protect our children from sexual abuse. I mean, I don't know if there's anything worse that a parent has to face besides knowing that their child has been abused and especially sexually abused. Primarily because usually the sexual abuser too wasn't someone not known to the family, but it was usually someone known to the family. Like maybe somebody at the school, some of the personnel, a teacher there, maybe a neighbor, maybe somebody at church, maybe even a family member. These are all things that can happen to a child. And so to prepare your child to stay safe, to feel protected and empowered so that they won't be sexually abused, but still be able to have normal, healthy, relationships and communication with these people, this can seem like a very difficult ask. A lot of the times what parents do when they're preparing their children to not be sexually abused is they just instill fear in their child of every other person, especially other adults in their lives. And that then creates a whole other problem, which is anxiety of adults and of other people and overthinking these sexual scenarios. That's not something that's going to help your child be empowered. That's going to help them be more afraid. So one of the key insights that I would like to share with you in this video is the importance of teaching your child boundaries about their own body so that they can have safety. You don't really have to teach about sexual abuse and what that entails when a child is really young. In fact, it could be the wrong time to do that. Okay, so on the website worldwideorganizationforwomen.org, that organization has a fantastic guide for parents to talk to their children about sexual abuse prevention. And that guide is called Simple and Safe, and it's completely free. You can get the free PDF on that website. So I do highly recommend that. That's going to give you a lot of guides. But one thing that it will talk about is the importance of not overdoing it at first. So talking about boundaries with their body might be a good thing. So you might talk about touch, for instance. You might say, okay, well, what is a healthy way to touch grandma or grandpa? What's a healthy way to touch brothers and sisters and neighbors? And what about teachers? What's a healthy touch there? Is it a high five? Is it a handshake? Who gets to do side hugs? Who gets to do front hugs? Those types of things would all be things that you would mention as far as boundaries with their body. But you don't want to get them too freaked out and not trusting anyone in their life. You got to be careful about that too as you're preparing them to be successful. Now, if you know that somebody has a history of child abuse or pornography addiction or something like that within your family, then you'll probably even be a little bit more specific and rigid about certain things. So when I did therapeutic treatment care, I had perpetrators that were living in my home. I had to be very careful. Starting at a very young age, I taught my children that they had a special body. It needed to be kept private. The only people who could ever see it were mom and dad and the doctor. We would always be there at the doctor's office, that we would keep them safe with their body and that nobody else could ask to see it, and that they couldn't run around the house without their pants on, or, I mean, even when they were toddlers, they had to keep morality. They had to be modest in their dress, and they couldn't run from the shower to the bathroom naked. We weren't going to do that in our family because that could titillate some of the perpetrators that were in my home and might give them ideas that that would be a good person to sexually abuse, and we could not go down that road. Now, other things were boundaries related to the bedrooms. For instance, my foster children were never allowed to go into a bedroom with my child. So the same thing might be at school. Okay, well, you're not going to go into the bathroom with a teacher. You're not going to be changing your clothes with a teacher. You're not going to take pictures of yourself with a teacher. That's like going into a room alone with a teacher. You're not going to do that. You're not going to text a teacher, because that would be like having a conversation in a room alone with a teacher. We don't do those types of things. There's actually a rampant amount of abuse from the school level, more so than people know. And so you want to be very careful about teaching all those boundaries to your children about, touch and talk even. We're not going to allow teachers to give us gifts all the time and to do special things for us and to take us for rides in their car. If we're staying in a classroom to talk to a teacher about something, we want to make sure we have a friend with us. Right? So we want to make sure that we always have someone with us to keep us safe. And I hate to even suggest that teachers would be abusers, but sadly there's just so many cases now that we just have to take precautions. So when you have your conversations, you're going to focus heavily on boundaries, proactive boundaries. You're going to keep the conversations simple. Now, obviously, when they get a little bit older, you might need to tell them stuff like, hey, there are some people out there who are perverted in their minds and they want to touch other people's bodies and do things to other people's bodies. And that's not okay. Ever. It's not okay for you to do it. It's not okay for them to do it. That's a type of abuse that's called sexual abuse. And so you need to know that that's what that is. And if anyone ever wants to touch your body anywhere underneath your clothes, if they ever want to touch anywhere where a swimsuit would cover you, then you need to tell me about it. That's something that we're going to have ongoing talks about that. But I want you to know I would never be mad at you, ever. I would just want to know so that we could help you keep safe from that. And even other friends, even children your own age, shouldn't be touching you and watching you dress and all of those kinds of things. So I know that sounds kind of touchy, but it is possible to have the conversation so that a child doesn't feel like they would be shamed if they came to talk to you, and they wouldn't be worried about it, but that you would be completely open with them and that you would be completely calm. Tell them, listen, there's nothing that shocks me. I've lived in this world for a long time. I've heard a lot of stories. I know things that people face. So if there is anything that you ever feel like you need to tell me or you're wondering about, nothing's ever going to surprise me or shock me, and I'm here to help you. And I'm never going to be mad. Never. And so you just let them know that ahead of time. And then periodically have ongoing conversations. And I don't mean like weekly. That would be way too much. I mean, unless the child is really in circumstances where you feel like they could be perpetrated on, or they've had situations where they've gotten into maybe self-stimulation and they might be, interested in examining more with other people, then okay. Then talk about it on a regular basis. But I would then just keep a very close rein on them. I would keep them close to me so that they're not out there with other people where they could possibly get taken advantage of. But you might just, every so often, a couple of times a year, just say, hey, I just wanted to review our boundaries to make sure that we're all safe about sexual abuse, because I don't want you ever to be hurt by anyone. And, I think it's a good idea to just bring in physical abuse too. Physical abuse means this. Sexual abuse means that physical abuse could be happening to parts of your body that are covered by a swimsuit. And sometimes it could hurt, but also sometimes it could feel good. And make sure that they, at one point that they know that just because it feels good doesn't mean it's not abuse. Because you also probably want to talk to them about what are our bodies for, and why would it feel good if our bodies are touched. But that doesn't mean that we just go around touching them or letting other people touch them too. Super important. One other warning that I have for you is this. I don't know where you live because this is global, but all over the world there are curriculums in schools, and there are things online that people do curriculum-wise and stuff like that that they feel like come from trusted sources. I've reviewed a ton of that curriculum now, and a lot of that sexual abuse curriculum ends up getting into teaching children consent. A child cannot consent to sex legally in most places in the world. And why would we teach them to consent? If you teach them they can't consent, the reverse of that is that if they want to, they can consent. We need to be very careful about that. So be watchful about those things. A lot of times they get into way too much information. It gets into like a comprehensive sexuality education approach, which actually can end up grooming children to have more sex. So that's been proven. So just, be very careful about what your children are exposed to at school when it comes to sexual abuse prevention. I'd go ask to see the curriculum and maybe even ask if you can be there that day so that you can follow up with the child. They may think weird things about you because teachers are sometimes trained to think that every adult in the child's life is a sexual abuser nowadays, and they need to keep the children safe from their own parents. I would definitely participate in some of that so that you know what's being told to your child, or that you just opt out of that day too. If you've enjoyed this video, you'll probably like a lot of my other proactive videos here on this channel, especially the one that goes into how to stay calm when your child is not calm and how to help them get in control when they're going out of control. There's a great class that goes into some details there that can help you with self-government, and that one's called The Expectation Trap versus the Cycle for Success. So click on the link to that video next. I'll see you there.